Hello, visionary people of Entheo Nation. I'm here in Mendocino at a beautiful farm with my hosts Swami and Nikki. And they're here to share with us what it takes to be a high-end pot connoisseur and to be a judge at one of the regional cannabis cups. Is it regional or national?
It's regional. It's only for California.
Uh-huh.
It now does include all of California. It's called the Emerald Cup. Mm-hmm. And it's a cannabis cup, sun-grown, organic only entries. Mm-hmm. It is definitely only there's nothing like it in the world.
Wow, that's so great. So let's first start with your background. How did you become engaged with the art of cultivating high-end marijuana for medical purposes?
Well, we've been smoking cannabis for years. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously.
Yeah. We've lived all over the world, yeah. In India and places like that, particularly in India where cannabis consumption is, actually quite common, and you used to buy hash and various things from the government store. And it's also been known as an herbal medicine in Ayurvedic medicine, which is the kind of medicine they practice still today in India. For 5,000 or 6,000 years, the Ayurvedic medicine has known cannabis has medical qualities, which they mix with other herbs. But nonetheless, we came to California. Nikki grew up in California. She was born in San Francisco, and I came out here in the summer of love. And cannabis has always been central to that underground, music culture, and so we just sort of automatically came into it.
So tell me more about the Indian understanding of cannabis and how that really differs from, our American perspective, so to speak.
Well, yeah, it's part of the mythology. One of the
really.
Great gods, Shiva, actually is notorious, shall we say, or well known for drinking bhang. And bhang is a mixture of cannabis flowers or leaf and ghee or clarified butter, and then it's baked into pastry, or you can mix it with yogurt, and so it's an edible. And so Shiva, one of the great god, Mahadev, is known for eating bhang, and his acolytes also. Mm-hmm. And so that's seen as there's a whole idea about cannabis as a sacred gift. Mm-hmm. Right, that this is something that the gods have given and the gods themselves consume, and it's the blessing of nature that comes through. And one of the things I want to talk about also is the idea that we're trying to say, is it medical, is it recreational? And I'm going to put a new word out there, and that new word is cannabis is inspirational.
I love that.
And so what it is, it's creating the spirit of awareness within you. And so musicians know it, artists know it, anyone who's in a creative process knows that part of the process of creation is inspiration. And so inspiration comes from inhalation, or ingestion, as you like, right? But, say like someone like Jon Stewart or Bill Maher, and they're openly saying, hey, I smoke a joint before I come on the show because, I get, inspired and fired up. And so part of it is the idea that you're expanding your consciousness through the cannabis, which means you hear better, you see better. Not only do you hear better, but you listen better, right? And you perceive better. And your heightened awareness of food and all of those things. So my feeling is that most of us who started with cannabis when we were younger, we did it because of the inspiration, the creativity that came with it. And Nikki was just saying yesterday about how we discovered the medical part, in the West by accident.
Right.
How so?
Well, actually, the cannabis, for example, that comes from India, the seeds originally, a lot of it, and originally it always a mix of CBD, THC, different components that had a lot more healing qualities. Over the years, as it was in America and brought into the Western Europe and all over, people actively worked to take out everything but the THC with the seed. They would do
which they thought was what was getting you stoned.
Right.
In fact, that's
everyone just wanted to get more stoned. And so, unfortunately, they took it out. Well, we grew a plant a few years ago that we took to Harborside, where we sell much of our cannabis, and they tested it like they always do.
They sent it to Steep Hill testing
and
lab.
it came back with a very low THC, and it's like, oh, what's the point? It doesn't even get you high. But then they see, but wait, it has the CBD. What's up with that? So that's kind of how they, we would have just used it for something else.
Right.
Actually,
But
'cause
they
it
found
wouldn't
out
have
about
been
equal
considered
THC and CBD, and now, 10 years later, so we find out that when you have what they call a 1-to-1 ratio, THC-CBD, that is applicable to more medical conditions than if you have a high of one or a high of the other.
Right.
Nonetheless, there are certain conditions that actually require high THC. So there are a lot of people who are trying to say, well, THC is the euphoric thing and CBD is the medical thing.
Right.
And that's basically just wrong.
Oh, interesting.
Because they found that if you have someone say, you have a child with epilepsy, and there's like dramatic evidence when a child gets a glycerin-based cannabis drop, right? And so with like one squeeze of the glycerin, all of a sudden the child has no epileptic seizures for a month.
It's awesome.
Right? It's just amazing how
It's
this works,
unbelievable.
right? And so
It's such good medicine.
yeah. So but the CBD doesn't work unless there's a little bit of THC there.
That's
So
interesting.
you just don't want to isolate the CBD, that's what's working, science can manufacture that. No, it requires all of the things in cannabis for it to be working. So each plant, in fact, becomes a unique combination of all its living. There are over 400 compounds in cannabis. There's like almost 100 cannabinoids.
And so each one of these combinations can be used to treat a different type of ailment or illness.
Yes, the one that treats the most seems to be about 7% THC and 7% CBD.
Okay.
Right? But there's some that require very
Yeah,
high
so-
CBD with just 1% THC. And there, isn't it the cancer one that wants the
Cancer
high
wants the
THC?
high THC.
Right?
Where epilepsy, I think, is the high CBD.
Epilepsy is high CBD.
Yeah.
So there are other ways. So some people, you can't smoke enough to get those quantities. And that's where edibles come in.
Right.
Right? And the edibles come in, and with the edibles, then you can say, okay, this edible has high THC, but this one has high CBD. But they also have a little of the other. Right? And now these other things, these full extract oils, where they of the 400 compounds, the oil is extracted all of it. Those then you can take with high concentration, and you slowly build up. You get accustomed to the euphoric part. But with the oils, the high concentrate full extract oils, you can really get enough of the dose to have it be medically curative.
So what do you know about the treatment of cancer with cannabis oils or tinctures?
Oh, we've seen miracles happen.
So
There's
how would you
absolute
take
miracles.
this?
I mean, I don't know if you've experienced this. It's amazing. I mean, at first we didn't expect this. We were just smoking it to get high. I'll admit it, But now we find out it truly, truly, truly is medicine. I mean, we just had a friend, like just last week, we found out about a woman who was told she had 4th stage cancer, several kinds of cancer. And she worked for Harborside, so she was lucky she had access to all of this Simpson oil, or the really strong oil. And she just did as much as she could, I guess, as well as doing chemo and radiation. But when she went back to the doctor, they said they couldn't believe it. It was gone. And they really had thought she was going to die.
It was back
Was she
to...
taking it internally?
Yes.
Yes, he was taking what we normally call Simpson oil, but basically what we're talking about is a full extract oil. But you can get a full extract oil from a plant high in CBD, so the extract has a high percentage of CBD. Or you can get one a high THC, and therefore the extract. So it's about the percentages. And you see, the other thing about these kind of percentages is that we talk about the entourage. Now the entourage, it's not 50 Cent and the 10 people who run with him, Bo Daddy, whatever. No, it's about...
I was thinking entourage of fairies, that follow you everywhere while you're in the enhanced state.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. Because of all those 400 compounds are activating within the cannabis, and especially when you get a full extract or when you smoke, you get access to all of those elements, right? But it's the balance, so that each plant ultimately is totally unique in the exact balance of how many of this, how many of that. But what is the healing effect, as well as the inspirational effect, is the combination of all those elements. One of the reasons why trying to isolate and extract and make a factory produced isn't going to work the same way.
There are we know some wise people in these hills up here that are growing some real medicinal herb. And they do it to the extent that they get to know their patient, and they find out they figure out over his trial and error what really works, and then they literally grow that plant just for that person, and it'll have a label on it and
One
all
patient.
saying, you know, what it is, what the level is.
And
for
that's
CBD,
your
the
yearly
balance.
supply
That's
of that
beautiful.
particular
Yeah.
dose, right?
Uh-huh.
And the other nice thing about it, those plants usually get a name too, you know, because it's they're females, and so people get all these fancy names for them. But yeah, it's about tailoring or meeting of the two, right? Of the plant and the person, right? Because we have cannabinoids in us. A lot of people don't realize that we have cannabinoids in us, right? There are two kinds of cannabinoids in us. They're called, well, you know, you have entheogenetics and entheo. So what does entheo mean? Right? God within. Right? So some substance that causes you to realize God within
Can't
is
be
true.
bad.
Can't be bad,
Really?
actually, really. And however you're going to call your God. Right? So, you know, you're taking something that causes you to realize that that divine energy is operating in your life, you know, and actually humans have known about this for 8,000 or 9,000 years. I just was reading, archaeologists have found these, what look like little bowls, and they're actually carved out of stone. And this little bowl, it's a tiny little bowl like that, and in the bottom of the bowl, they found resin and seeds of cannabis. So the archaeologists...
Where did they find the bowl?
Well, somewhere like 5,000 year village, right?
Was
that
it in Egypt, or where was it?
I can't remember where it was, but it was somewhere where they dug down and they knew because of the archaeology exactly how old it was in this village. And so, I mean, this is like 4,000 BC or 2,000, you know, somewhere in there. And I should have the footnote for this.
You
right?
should,
Yeah.
really.
So we've been
Facts.
using cannabis
Yeah.
for a long time.
So the archaeologist says, well, they're
Long
using it
time.
for incense. Well, obviously the archaeologist wasn't a stoner, because you don't burn this for the good smell. Right? But what I figure they were doing is, they didn't have paper, they couldn't roll a joint.
Oh,
They
so
didn't have
just burn it
ceramics,
and
so
go,
they couldn't make a pipe.
take
Right?
it.
So what do is they have this little stone bowl. They put a flower of marijuana in there, of cannabis, excuse me. Put a flower of cannabis in there. Take a charcoal from the fire, set it on top, right? And then they get their blanket or
And they
their
hotbox
animal
it.
skin, and they have 3 people are under there, and they're hotboxing. They're hotboxing.
And all that charcoal, too.
No, just a little. The fire's
little,
out there.
okay.
You just put one little coal
Just
on
a
there,
tiny coal.
just to smoke it. You don't want to flame it
Wow.
up like that. And so, like, 3 or 4 people are under there, and pretty soon they're
Yeah.
giggling and laughing, and everybody's feeling good. Right? And when you look at the drug market out in the regular world, how many substances are for sale on the market just to alter your mood, make you feel good, you know, Valium, all those other things, you know. And okay, but let's call that the inspirational thing. Right? If you're inspired, you're gonna forget about your physical problems and
But those pharmaceutical drugs don't necessarily inspire you. And if you take Prozac, you kind of become
They have
blank,
all
right?
kinds of other
It's the
negative
opposite
side
of
effects.
inspiration.
Exactly.
It's desperation.
Yeah,
Is there
yeah.
such a word?
Yeah, and even like, you know, some of the cannabis that I've encountered in other parts of the world where it's dominated by commercial narco-trafficante interests, for example, they do terrible things to the marijuana, like compress it into bricks, spray ammonia on it, so it's not even good for you when you smoke it.
Well, yeah,
And,
people
you
who've
know,
had bad experiences with cannabis, that in some cases it's quite likely, well, it wasn't the cannabis that gave you the bad experience. It's what people put on it and all those other things.
And the
actually-
motivation
Right,
around how they
Right.
cultivated it for profit.
Well, now that's a good point, because
Really
as
makes
judges
sense,
in the
yeah.
Emerald Cup, you know, we find that we get a lot of, you know, entries that are just kind of, they just want a free ticket, it seems like, right? But we do get entries that seem like they're really good, but at a certain point you can tell one of two things, that, wow, there's still a lot of chemistry in this flower.
Yeah.
So how can you? What do you mean by a lot of chemistry in the flower? Like they put a lot of inputs, like fertilizers.
A lot of
and
amendments
they may
and
not have
fertilizers.
flushed them out properly.
And they
Yeah.
say the plant was a
Oh.
little small, so very late in the season they hit it with a lot of nitrogen, thinking that's going to veg it up,
Yeah.
right? But actually, they don't have enough time now from when they put the nitrogen to harvest for the nitrogen all to flush out.
Interesting.
Right? Or even worse, now it's come to flower, and the flowers aren't so big, so you throw a bunch of phosphorus on, and then you shouldn't put anything on your plant for 2 weeks before
So you can taste
harvest.
that.
Yeah, one way you can tell
can
too
taste
is
it.
like, you know, if you get an ash if you ever had a joint that's really gets black,
Black
you know, the
ash.
ash is just
Sure.
black, that's really not a good sign.
Oh,
That's
okay,
not a good sign.
interesting.
That
Yeah.
probably means what, nitrogen or something? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think
too
it's the
much of
nitrogen
something
and
in
so
there.
on. that wasn't, they
Yeah,
put it on
little
too
things like
late
that.
and too much
Or if
quantity.
it hurts your throat, either that or it's not cured properly.
Got it.
That's the other thing. Could just have been
harshness,
really cured improperly.
you know, not. And then
So
there's
many
another
tricks to the
quality that
trade.
you can sense because, well, in terms of judging in the Emerald
Yes,
Cup,
are both of you guys judges?
we have one vote, but we judge together.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
okay,
very
so
good.
what are you looking for when you're evaluating high-end marijuana? And well, first of all, like, is the Emerald Cup, is it only organic?
Yes. So it's only organic, sun-grown.
Okay.
And we've been with it since it started. This will be its 12th year coming up in the middle of December. You really should go there and do some interviews. It's a
Yes, I'd love
fantastic
to.
event.
December.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this year it's going to have like 10,000 people a day for Saturday, Sunday. And it's like this giant trade show, but it's cannabis related, and you can't believe
At
you're
the Santa
there.
Rosa
You have to keep
Fairgrounds.
pinching yourself, like and cops are walking by, security guards, and somebody's
how
over here smelling
wonderful.
cannabis, and they've got these giant hash extractor machines and stuff. It's really amazing. And then we get to give away the awards. That's an honor that we get to stand on stage and give the top 20 out. So what we look for is looks, smell, taste, and effects.
Look, smell, taste, and effects.
Yeah, just like any good connoisseur, really. You know, I guess you would do the same with wine.
Yeah, we the judges ourselves, we created this protocol, but it's basically based on, you know, you're going to buy a lid or you're going to buy a pound or something like that. First of all, you look at it. Is it just shaggy and a lot of leaf, or is it nicely trimmed, right?
So what is like an excellent look for, you know, quality bud here?
Oh, that's a good question. It's well, it would be something that's not too dense and dry. It has to be, but not spongy. You don't want it spongy or soft or something either. Although sometimes it might just be one of those really sativa kinds that get so open, and they're the hardest to trim of all, actually.
Yeah.
You know, these
But the first thing you look at is the trim.
The trim.
Is there too much leaf on there?
If it's a mess, forget it. You know, if you're entering this contest, we want your best. You know, don't even waste your time.
Right.
Really,
because
the
last neighbor did put their best
we
effort
had 670 entries last year.
Wow, so you had to taste 670.
Well, we have 6 weeks. It's not like in one day here.
But, well, actually, see, the process is we look at it and see, so how's the trim? That's the first thing. What's the color?
Okay.
What do the hairs look like? Are they long and shaggy? Are they brown? Or are they kind of tan?
So which is better, long and shaggy?
No, we're not trying to say better. We're just trying to, what is it?
All right.
What is it, right? And so, what's the color? What's the kind of green? Is it a forest green? Is it a khaki green? And so on. We're describing this flower as well as we can. And then I'll get out a little 60-plus microscope. Now I'll look at the trichomes, right? Nikki never does, but I always do. And I always say, I don't know what it tells me in terms of the number, but I'm looking at the trichomes, right? So they're trichomes. You know what a trichome is? If you look at it at a microscope...
So what is a trichome?
It's a little stickly thing that sticks up like that with a little kind of ball on the top. Yeah. You know how you have straight pins for sewing that have a little ball on the top of them, right? Rather than a flat head. That's what a trichome looks like. And it contains most of the medicine.
And they start off clear.
Well, they start
off cloudy, kind of, actually, right?
They start off clear and then cloudy and then amber.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of high-grade cannabis, one of the key things, of many key things actually, is when is the peak of harvest.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are out there with microscopes looking at the flowers on their living bush, and they're trying to say what percentage of the amber trichomes, and the perfect percentage they argue about up here in the hills. Is it 20% or 30% and so on?
Yeah, we really are like sommeliers or something,
Yeah.
you know. We really do...
So, but I'm noting that, right?
Things.
And so if it has too many amber trichomes, it's actually past its peak.
Ooh, interesting.
As potency, right? But if it hardly has any, then it's a little premature.
Okay.
So I've developed a technique where I can't make a rational decision about each plant. So I do a thing which, do you know about kinesiology, muscle testing, and that sort of thing, right? Strong, weak, and so on. Well, I have a thing where I do my fingers, and so I go out to each plant the night before, and I say Ganjama, do you want to come in tomorrow? Are you ready to come in tomorrow? And they say, no. All right? And then I'll say, should I leave you? Yes. Go on to the next plant. Shaktipat. Do you want to come in tomorrow? Are you ready to come in tomorrow? Yes. All right? Or should I leave you? No. I always ask the double question. And if the yes answer on the one is equal to the no answer to the other, then I know I've actually communicated with the plant. So the plant says, yes, I want to come in tomorrow. I'm at my peak. So then we'll take off all the big leaves and the yellow leaves and kind of pare it down while it's still alive. And then in the morning I'll get up, before sunrise, before daylight even, and I have a little headlamp and I cut down the plant, right, the whole plant, and and it's now hung up within 20 minutes after I cut it down.
Just the whole thing upside down.
The whole plant
there's
upside down.
many ways to do it.
But the point is that you're getting the peak.
We like this.
They've done surveys, and I'll show you a graph. The terpenes, which is where the smell comes from, that's at its peak just before dawn. So you want to cut it right then, and then you get the peak of the terpenes, which brings us to the second thing we look for, which is smell.
Okay.
Or I prefer to call it fragrance, right? And the fragrance comes from terpenes. Terpenes are volatile organic oils, which are in every plant matter. And even if it smells moldy and so on, that's from terpenes. So the terpenes are called limonene, pinene, citrine, and so on. So you can just imagine what the smells are.
But when we try to judge it, one of the things we really work on is to give, we're not wanting to say, oh, it smells just like lemon kush or something. No. You want to say...
No, it's lemon haze.
Yeah, it's straight.
No.
We try to do it more like what it actually smells like. Oh, it smells like lemon meringue pie. Instead of a strain. It's not like, you can't just say it smells like sour diesel. Yeah. You're going to say it smells like... gym socks.
It smells like Simple Green. Or a moldy rag under the sink. And we get stuff that does smell like that. But see, we had to go through a transformation and say, well, we can't say whether that's a good smell or a bad smell. No, that's not judgmental.
So moldy rag could actually be good weed.
Oh yes, very good weed. Very good weed.
Under the sink.
Because you're not finding, it's not whether I like that smell or not, it's what is that smell telling me. It's telling me what the terpenes are. And since terpenes show up in all other kind of vegetable matter, they've been researching terpenes for many years. And terpenes have antifungal, antiviral, anti-cancer effects. Different ones have different effects. So we know that. But now we've combined terpenes with cannabinoids and say when the two work together, we know that the terpenes have medical qualities. Put them together with cannabis and it amplifies it. Right? So the fragrance that you get is from the terpenes, but we're trying to make a reference. It smells like cardamom, for example. All right? It smells like old sneakers. No, it smells like new sneakers, or it smells like airplane blue. Something outside the reference of cannabis that everyone knows. So we smoke everything in the same place. All right? So we're just sitting there, and what comes into your head? The first thing that pops in,
It's a little bit like wine tasting, except
it's
with...
exactly like wine tasting.
They would never say that this wine tastes like moldy rats.
Yeah, with wine tasting, you wouldn't swallow, right? But see, now with us, so on those two first qualities, the look and the fragrance, we actually can eliminate about half the samples.
Yeah. So, not half, maybe a third. Maybe a third.
At the end, it was a half.
By the end, when you have 670 samples, you do have to get really critical. And so that's why we always, when we're on stage giving out the awards, we try to encourage people that are going to enter next year to, like I say, give us your best. Make sure it looks good, or we're not going to have time to even look at it.
Okay, so basically, before you even taste it, you smoke it, you're already kind of discerning it visually and by the scent.
And fragrance, right.
Okay, so that means you don't have to smoke all 600.
That's exactly right. Because over the years we found, number one, that terpenes are very important. So if I get a sample, and see, by the way, what we get is like a little canister, like an old-fashioned film can, with a number on it and a bud. And that's all we know. We don't know strain, we don't know where it came from, we know nothing. This is the bud, it's number so-and-so.
Completely blind.
And with the judges and one another, we just talk about numbers. Did you try number 67?
Right.
Wow, that's really, really good.
And the contestants are given a different number.
Right, so they have one set of numbers and we have another set of numbers. Right.
Oh, interesting, okay.
Right. So it's a blind that way, right? And so... if I have a sample now, it's a little shaggy. They haven't gotten really the leaves off, right? You still see those little crow's feet, that you can see on them. Then, okay, it's not going to get 9.5 points. It's going to get 9.1 points. And so then we go and now it has no smell. I don't have to look any further.
Gosh,
but sometimes we've had some ugly ones that smell good.
Ugly ones.
And then we go forward.
But terpenes are so important, we find, in the entourage of effects that cannabis has. If you give me a sample that has no terpenes, then I'm sorry, you're competing against people where what we call jar-jumping terpenes. You open it up and boom, you just smell it instantly, right? So that means that the grower really knew how to fertilize, they knew how to cure, and all of that, and they knew how to flush out. Right?
Okay.
So now that's two qualities.
Then we go into the taste. And so, so now Swami does the rolling while I take the notes. By the end of this thing, we have a thick book of really a binder-sized thick one full of notes. And so each one, we like to give each one credit. Even if we don't smoke it the whole thing, we'll take notes.
We make comments about it.
So, he'll feel it. Is it sticky? How he rolls it. How does it feel when you roll it?
So that comes about the cure.
Yeah, that tells a lot about the cure.
How cures it. We get stuff that's hardly dry because it's December and this is my best one. It's hardly dry, but I'll enter anyway. And if it's actually too wet, I don't even roll it.
Do it. So then we do a dry hit. And that's something that everybody should do at home. What's
a dry hit?
A dry hit is so you roll up a joint, and I guess it would work with a pipe. I don't know. And so you take a hit, and you just dry it before you light it, and you just to taste it. It's going to be pretty similar usually to the smell because these are all connected, the terpenes and all that stuff.
Right.
But it's just kind of a nice thing to do. It's like a little tasting ceremony.
Because when we smell it, I have it on my little rolling tray, and our noses are right in that stuff, right? Seriously. And actually, we get sneezes quite a bit. It's really something. But then then you roll it all up, and before you light it, take a deep drag of it, right? And that's when you get the terpenes. Yeah. And that's kind of when it tastes a little bit like a vape.
Okay.
Right? You're just getting the terpenes, right?
Right.
So now...
And then we smoke it.
Right.
And then it's like basically, so say in the first couple of hits it feels too harsh, has no flavor at all, has a flavor we can't stand up. Is there something like,
but there's a course, because sometimes that really strong flavor that I don't like is actually really, really good stuff. Like, for example, there were a lot of tangerine, or we call them tangy entries, right? A lot of tangies. And you know what? I just don't like that flavor. I mean, it just rubs me the wrong way, right? Yeah. But I know I can judge that this is a weak tangy and this is a strong tangy. Right? And it's going to get points a strong tangy, but it might not get quite as many points for me as if it's a lemony, for example. Just that little difference. So I'm going to give it credit for being good at what it is, but ultimately, when it comes down, if these two are tied, I'm going to go with the
then it tastes like with wine or anything else.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
It would just be that.
So now sometimes we'll take one hit or judge a hit on flavor when I'm lighting it. So I'll light it up, take a puff, so get it, and I'll pass it to Nikki. And I won't say anything. And then Nikki will take a couple of hits on it, and then she'll pass me, and I'll take it. And then we kind of throw out words, what comes in, and so on, right?
And so that's like the smell where we try to give the flavor of something that's actually a tangible thing, not just some, it tastes just like kush,
And we read the wine reviews before.
I'll tell you, we do. By about number 300, we get desperate.
But see, with wine, you do the same thing. When you pour a glass wine, you look at it. And what's the color of the red, or what's the color of the white? That's the same with the evaluation. And then you stick your nose in the glass, right? And what do they call that? The nose, right?
The nose,
right? They call that the nose. So that's the difference that you're getting, because see, your tongue doesn't taste flavor. Your tongue tastes sour, sweet, salty. But what your taste is when you chew something, the terpenes are liberated and come out through your nose as you exhale. So the flavor of food comes from terpenes, and that comes from your respiratory system, right? The flavor that you taste should be similar to the one that inhaled. And if it's not, that's another thing is, wow, this doesn't taste at all.
Sometimes it's not, too.
Right.
And so,
but it's not necessarily really you like that taste.
But this disappointed. It's like, wow, it's really beautiful.
Really?
Okay, wow.
It smells great.
Okay. Oh, wow, it smells great. Oh, it tastes like shit.
Aww.
I know, and you're like, oh. Or you'll do the whole thing and get high, like, we'll check in an hour later with each other, like,
So, and so then there's all these qualities of things that, does it stay consistent, right? Does it keep, if it disappoints at one layer, then, like it has no taste. Well, I'll take a couple more, see if it still has no taste. Then I don't smoke the rest of the joint.
But then there's another thing, because we just get these little samples, right, of 2 grams or something. When we go and meet with judges, which we do about once every 10 days over the 6 weeks, and we'll have a meeting and we'll have all these there of each one's entry. Not just a dinky little sample, but the full jar.
600
maybe 2.5
mason
ounces
jars.
at that point. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
600 masons.
600
the big ones.
Each
the
with
two
a
quart
number on
ones.
top.
Each with a number on top. All laid out.
So go back and say, like, this one, it looked good. No, it tasted good. It's good. It's just such an ugly bud. When you can go back and say, hey, maybe I just got a funky piece.
And you can say,
your jar, and you
what's
say,
the bud
actually,
really
these
look
are really
like?
beautiful bees.
Okay.
So we go back. We
try to be really fair. That's why.
See, there's another thing about the judging as an entire process that we've evolved over the years. There's something about one of the judges, Field, said, we judge, we trust each other's judgment. And the reason that we trust each other's judgment is that year in and year out, we only figure out what are the top 10, right? And all the time while you're singing, you worry, gee, am I alone? Is anyone else like this? Are we completely out of it going on? And then you get there, and in the end, we get a list of the top 10 after a long process, basketball, March Madness, semifinals, finals, quarterfinals, all that stuff, right? So in the end, this top 10, and every one of the judges in the top 3, right? The top are always in every judge's top 10.
Yeah, it's amazing. They really stand out.
Their agreement is something.
Yeah, that's probably the most common question we ever get about being judges is, so many still feel it. How do you discern
how do
it's
you
a winner?
tell? Because it's not like you can spit it out like wine.
But yet, he does, because what you do is you get to such a buzz level of stoneness that if something cuts through that, you stop and listen.
Right.
You notice.
But see, there's also how does it look and how does it smell. So the smell thing, you can keep that up. Right, so a lot of people smell coffee. They smell coffee grinds between testing.
Right.
But it's not like you're going to get too stoned to smell, really, because actually, as you go, your smell increases, your smelling ability increases, right? So we don't lose. But there's also, we actually smoke a lot all year long, and I always joke we have to stay in shape for the Emerald Cup, right? But we don't fall 650 because if they don't pass the look and the fragrance test, I don't go any further. And then on the test, if it's a really black ash or some sort of weirdness or harshness, we don't finish it.
Okay.
But then the ones that are beautiful, fragrant, tasty, we smoke them all the way down.
Okay.
And that's what makes a difference with the wine.
And
right?
then you kind of see in some, of course, now with effects, even no matter how far along we are into it, some of them likes to kind of hit you right upside the head, that kind. And then there's the kind that takes a long come on a while later, or the kind that has the escalation kind of thing. You can tell. There's so many. The kind of where you want to talk and be social,
right?
The kind
Or some make you laugh, right?
So how do you judge on effects? Like, what are some of the
what we're talking about.
This is
discernible?
What you're looking for.
Okay.
And like I say, we do the set and setting is always the same, so that does help. Because
every joint
you're kind of always in the same. It's always in our living room, on our couch there. So basically in the same positions,
Yeah, right.
That's what we're doing.
But what's the deal with some of the marijuana that makes you paranoid? I remember some of that.
Well, there is some marijuana that's like that. Actually, this kind of mix up, but it could occasionally have to. At least when we're judging, we think that has to do with where it comes from. That was put into it when it was in.
See, that's the other pollution.
Grown, you can really feel it. I know I sound like bull, and maybe they put in some chemicals and we don't know about it too. It's a vibe that could get in there. It also can have nothing at all to do with the cannabis, and it can have everything to do with the person smoking it. Some people physically just have that reaction. And it's like absolutely any medicine you can take, any pharmaceutical, whatever, there's going to be certain people, certain reactions.
And certain strains cause that more than others.
Okay.
Certain strains definitely cause certain kinds of people. I mean, let's face it, no one medicine is good for every person for every condition, right? So there definitely are situations where someone might have a propensity to have that kind of action normally anyway, or in a situation, and the cannabis might make that more likely. So
sometimes it may, not all the time, but it sometimes has to do with people who the drug, I've seen that with different entheogens as well, people who feel that they're stronger than it or something and don't just relax and enjoy, just enjoy.
But there also could come a mini crisis in your daily environment that often you now, because of this mini crisis, whatever you do have paranoid thoughts.
But I think actually it just gets down to some sort of physiological thing.
Yeah.
And when they finally make this leap nationwide, federally, and all that, we'll be able to do the research that should have been happening for years And we wouldn't be just guessing at these little bits of knowledge that we know. I mean, imagine if we actually had UCSF and going crazy on studying on this.
Right.
They'd be finding many things the pharmaceutical companies would be going nuts.
Yeah, right. But there's a thing about the paranoia because, I mean, a lot of citizens are law-abiding citizens. And they pride themselves on being law-abiding citizens. And they don't want to break the law. Right? And it's funny happened with some of these families who have children with epilepsy, and they live in a state where they can't get cannabis. So do I break the law and get cannabis for my health? There's a paranoia that would inevitably be associated with that. These are, your law-abiding citizens, right? Not to say that we aren't, but the fact that they are in a situation where medicine they need, they can't get because it's illegal. So they have to move. People literally move to us so they now can get it. Why? Because their child now has one epileptic seizure a month when it used to have 20 a day.
Yeah, amazing.
Right? And that, that brings me to another thing we talk about, which is to say that the medical quality of cannabis saves lives, right? We've said so many years now that, okay, so many people die from alcohol, so many people from tobacco, but nobody has died from cannabis, right? Okay, let's ask a new question. The new question is, how many people have died because they couldn't get cannabis? How many people have died it's illegal and they didn't want to break the law? How many people went blind from glaucoma? How many people died of epileptic seizure? How many people died of various forms of cancer? How many people have died from concussions, from post-traumatic stress, and have a miserable life? And cannabis could have at least relieved their symptoms, if not cured them. And to deny those people the possibility of getting the exact right medicine for their condition seems to me blatantly immoral and illegal. And it's something that ultimately, I don't know, can you sue the DEA for stopping people from their medicine?
I don't think so.
Right? No, you can't. But the fact of the matter is, thousands, if not millions, of people have died or suffered and had a miserable life because cannabis denied them. At the same time as, for the last 20 years, approximately 700,000 to 800,000 people are arrested every year for cannabis possession.
Seems absolutely ludicrous that this keeps going on.
Yes, seems does. And cannabis is, to go back to the theme of your show, cannabis is an entheogen. It's a sacred plant that's a gift from the gods to humans. It's the most useful plant for all plants in the entire plant kingdom. Cannabis has more uses for humans than probably any other three plants. I mean, okay, there's coconut, which is mat, right? And there's peanuts and all these other things, soy and so on. But cannabis includes all of that, It's food, it's oil, it's fuel, it's paper, it's building materials. It's the most amazing plant. And to deny access to it, to deny use of it is actually absolutely one of the stupidest things, sinful things, immoral that any government could ever do. And then to put all these people, we have more people in jail in this country than anywhere else in the world. And most of those numbers are from cannabis.
So as we approach the end of this interview, which I feel like I could just keep talking to you guys with your wealth of information. Oh my gosh. But I'd love to just, explore two last questions with you. I guess the first is, where do you see the cannabis be going? So, in this conversation, I've gotten the understanding, indeed, there's a lot of science in the medicine, of using cannabis, genetics, the understanding of the genetics and how we can use the different strains, the different combinations, THC and CBD to treat different ailments. And then we're seeing a whole trend of, movement towards legalization. So allowing medical marijuana. And then we're seeing places movement towards decriminalization and recreational use. So
inspirational use.
Yes, inspirational use, exactly. So, as we move in that direction, it's inevitable, it's just a matter of time. Where do you see the cannabis industry going? So this is what I envision. I envision high-end pot tours in the Emerald Triangle where people can sample different kinds of, well-cultivated ganja from farms, small organic farms, and then in between enjoy 5-star Michelin restaurant in Nevada City.
And between courses, at that 5-star restaurant, perhaps have a little cannabis
It's possible.
appetite stimulator.
As a realist, however,
Okay.
it's one thing to go from the Bay Area around here, to go from the Bay Area where most people would come from, to the wine country is an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
To go up here, it can be 4 hours.
You need an airplane.
Yeah,
like an airport.
But the train is coming soon.
Oh yeah, right.
No, the train, it's already going to Sonoma.
Riverdale,
It's only going to be a little while before the train comes all the way. The train used to go from La Landing all the way to Eureka.
Mm-hmm.
And the tracks are there, but they've been out, so it'd be very expensive to redo.
Anyway, we'll see if that happens.
Right. But people would...
As far as the future of it, who knows?
Yeah.
We have absolutely no clue. And
Do you think there's going to be a phase out of indoor? More people can grow?
It would be wonderful. I mean, that would be our... In a perfect world, people of the world who smoke cannabis would all realize that, like anything else, it's better an organic, clean product that's grown consciously into your body than something that's grown chemically under lights and all of that. That's not good for the planet's environmental concerns. Seems good. So that would be the perfect world, that people would realize that, and in that case, it would be the small farmers would live. There would be a place for us as the wine. Of course, that is what we relate to because we're creating appellations up here, just like for wines, and it's very much that.
Well, there's a legislature that's kind of working through the California Senate and Assembly. One of the qualities that we're trying to a category of, what are we saying? Heritage specialty cultivators.
Yeah.
Heritage specialty cultivators that use old school methods for growing cannabis. And that one of the qualities of that that they would be organic. Then in order to be classified that, you have to be organic. And so that would be a model for that you would have to be.
Right? Not only that, it would be hand, as
Right.
opposed to machine trimmed, right? What are all the other things we've talked about?
Well, you'd have to identify your water source
Right,
to say
right.
that this is
That it's
legitimate
all
use of
properly-
your water. That it's organic, that it's hand trimmed, and that it's sun grown, and those things can be certified. We are certified as a clean green operation. Oil is tested and so on. And so what we're talking about is what in wine you'd call boutique wine production, and we're cannabis high end, which means that you're very aware of what you're putting in your body, and that one of the things that indoor takes about 3 months to produce, and sun grown takes 7 to 8 months. So for me, during those 7 to 8 months, it's being charged by the sun, filled with all that energy. And likewise, as I say, it's being charged by the moon and the star, right? And it's in the real ground. So there's a connection of, outer to inner, the ground to solar, so on. And so now the cannabis is actually a G product, and so that has more energy in it. And what we're talking about now is, say, the Central Valley of California, which has a lot of acreage and agricultural water and all that, and a lot of knowledge, that they would have greenhouses and light, and they're going to produce huge quantities of high quality,
It'll be good. It'll probably be killer weed.
Yeah.
Because they'll have it all THC. They'll know how to just do it perfectly.
And they'll
to
use
get what
all
the
of their
public
shake and
generally
trim
wants.
for the concentrates.
So generally the public wants something that has lots of bling,
A lot
lots
of crystal on it and so on.
And
we find that doesn't have
and
much
the
in
high
the cup
THC.
with whether it's
No,
stoned.
so many people will say, well, the first thing they ask, how high is the THC? That's not really what it's all about,
See, at the cup, we
That they
have
can produce.
the winners did, right? The top 20 are tested. And every year, the winner is not the highest seed.
Never.
In fact, last year, in 2014, number 20 had more seed than number 1.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
And part of the reason for that is the numbers we judge for A+ look, A+ fragrance, A+ taste, A+ effects. Right? And the one with the highest THC, maybe it has really good effects too, was down on these other things. So this is the Emerald Cup. This is the best plant grown, or Northern California, all of California now, this year. It's got to be A+, A+, A+.
What are the top effects that you look for?
I don't know. We're looking.
Effects.
Like if it makes you laugh a lot, is that like
I'd say for
10?
me it would be, people probably have their own effects.
Yeah.
Creativity, socialness.
Right. Well, see, the goes that we have also kind of vague,
physical things.
Is this a morning joint? To go, ready to go, right? Or is this a couch potato joint? There are other ones that, okay, this is a maintenance joint. Keep your THC level constant, but you're not feeling that boost, right? Is this one to party? Is this a laughing, funny one? Is this just like, oh God, I have to do that stick sort of stuff, So, but no, they have those
I usually prefer
problems.
the ones that like wake me up, but then again, sometimes you just sleep.
You just want to chill out, right? And so they're ones that are effective for that, you see.
Okay.
So always ask what's your favorite one, and I really find that difficult to answer because sometimes I'll smoke one just because smelling the flavor. I want that. And I'm not really thinking so much about what the effects are. But where others I know, okay, I need to do this, I better not smoke that one.
Got it. Okay. Last question, but I want to pose it to both of you. This is my favorite question because I love working with sacred plant allies for insight and wisdom. And I want to ask you, in your experience working with the sacred plant, marijuana, cannabis, and getting to know her spirit, what's the most visionary experience you've had, and what did you learn from it? Nikki, do you recollection?
Visionary. I have to think about that because, of course, visionary, I think more of other kinds of entheogens. They're a little more visionary in that sense. It's because at least visually visionary. Otherwise, as far as just insightfulness.
Yeah, even insights. That I would see that as a form of vision.
This kind of sounds scary, but I've been smoking since I was 14, and I'm 60, and I've smoked every day of my life. So to pinpoint that is really a big question. Do you have a clue about that? That's a tough one. Because, I mean, if you were to ask me about psychedelics, in a minute I'll tell you some different things. Or meditation or something like that.
Okay.
But it's like every day. It's who I am. It's become a part of me. It's
well, the LSD and things like that, which we've done, they're like peak moments, but you don't do them every day.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And actually, I have some friends who actually train them every day. And ended up somewhat
that's not such a good idea.
disoriented.
Not such a good idea.
But with cannabis, you can, and you get that little ovation. In fact, there's a whole thing. It's like at a certain point, it's
Okay, wait. I thought of one thing. Mm-hmm. No, but this doesn't even count. This is just like one of the times I got the most like knocked out. But it was that hashish in Afghanistan. Back in 1977,
right.
That everyone calls one-toke blackout. But is that a good thing? That's not really a higher consciousness thing, right? But that was memorable.
What came to mind, I always like to just throw out the first thing, was that, one action, I was out in the garden with my plants, and they're now really big, really huge. I mean, they're like 6 or 7 feet in diameter, they're 10 feet high, and they're just all over the place. And that year we had really beautiful female names for all of them. Gloria and Agnes. I mean, they're all these great names. And so I'm looking at mold, because someone said, couldn't be mold on the tip. You get this brown mold on the tips of the branches. And I'm looking all over, is there mold over here? Mold over? And I'm not even sure why I was looking at that plant, but I just went in there. And so I feel something tap me on the shoulder. And so there's nobody here. So I'm looking for mold on this plant. I'm not seeing any. Another tap on the shoulder. So I turn around, and right here, there's the mold.
Interesting.
And so it's like, okay, I'm talking to the plant, or the plant's talking to me. And other times I'll see a plant, and now that one wants water. But then one of the key things was I had some sprouts. And when you sprout up a cannabis seed, it looks a little bit like a bean sprout, right? White and so on. We use the husk of the shell on it, right? And it's kind of a little slightly hairy, the sprout, right? It's about long. The seed. So then you put that in the ground, right? And it starts to grow and it shoots out a little thing. And then it's above the ground, it's maybe like that. And there's 2 little round leaves. And then about, 3 or 4 days later, 2 little pointed leaves come out. So there's 2 round leaves, there's 2 pointed leaves this way. So that's when I transplant them into a slightly bigger one, right? And now I transplant it and all the root ball falls off it. And it's just, oh God, this is a catastrophe. The root ball off, how is the plant going to survive? Well, it's a very hardy weed, so it will survive. I'm looking at, and all I've got is, it looks like my beard hair, right? And a little thing up here with tiny little leaves on it. So this thing is maybe 10 days old, right? Now I have this pot, and I punch a hole in the pot, and I try to put the seedling into the pot. And as soon as there's dirt here. As soon as it gets to this, the root jumps, and it literally jumps to the side. And I pull it out and said, that's deep enough. And it goes in and it jumps to the side again. So what's happening is this root is sensing the soil that it just was stripped of. Right? It wants soil, it wants moisture, cover, it wants all those things, it wants darkness, it wants mama. Right? So I put it in, and that means that most of the root's still out. So I talk to it now the third time, and I say, and it's not deep enough. So I say, I just jump it in real quick, and then I tuck the soil around. I realize now that this root, this little plant, 10 days old, is conscious. It knows where the soil is. It knows it wants it. And it moved. Where was the muscles that made this thing move?
Yeah, right. Wow.
Right? And where was the awareness up? And so I started thinking about, you have a seed. The seed sprouts, but it needs water. It needs warmth. And it also needs day and night. So there's 4 things it has to be aware of. The seed, before it sprouted. And it has to have a decision-making process. 5th thing that says, okay, I got water, I got heat, I got dark, and I got day and night. It's time to sprout. If it's missing any one of those things, it doesn't sprout. So already the seed has consciousness of moisture, of heat, of light, and of decision-making. And that consciousness now comes into us molecularly.
What do you think we could learn from Cannabis as a plant ally?
Just that we're connected, that we can talk with them, that we're connected with. We have it in us, right? You know that chlorophyll and hemoglobin are almost the same thing?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you take a dry chlorophyll and a diagram of hemoglobin has 1 extra molecule of iron.
So that's why smoothies are so good for you.
Yeah. That's how we're 96 the same percent genetic as supposedly. Right?
Yeah.
But somehow the chlorophyll and hemoglobin are similar things, so similar, in fact, that there's only 1 molecule of iron that makes them different. And so that's how close we are to the plant world, and we can talk to the plant world, and the plant talks to us. And if we pay attention and listen, the plant world will help us come to this. But we can't say that we're the boss. You know, we have to say, hey, plant world, listen, we're trying to hear what
I think they're the boss, actually.
Yeah, nature has the last laugh. And so we have to be willing to open up and listen to how we can make so, the way we grow cannabis is to be in harmony with our natural environment and to produce a product that takes, so, like we take our seed and we have a goddess, Ganjama, the goddess of cannabis. And we put our seeds on her before we plant them for a moon cycle. And I say a mantra. And then with the seeds to sprout, I have water from the sacred Ganges River in India. And each gets a drop of Ganges River water, which is sacred water. And then a mantra again. And then when I transplant, again, another drop of Ganges water and a mantra. And harvest the first flower goes back to the lap of the goddess. So that's the way, the intention for this wonderful miracle plant to inspiration and healing and harmony to the people who use it.
That is so beautiful. Thanks for sharing with us your process of working with the plants. No wonder this is so good.
Well, we set the intention that way, and we keep that energy already on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So how can we best stay in touch with you and discover some of the
we can do an advertisement for our show.
www.swamiselect.com.
We're on YouTube.
Select.
Oh, great!
At Swami Select, and we also are developing a website also that's still in the process.
Well, that's pretty much there. It's an educational tool.
You can go to it, but I'm learning. I just got my first computer a month ago or something.
Someone's helping with it.
There are people helping us, but
we're farmers.
Anyway, just learning the process, uploading stuff, and so on. But yeah, there's stuff on both YouTube and our own website,
SwamiSelect.com.
And Swami Select on YouTube.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And thank you.
Thanks for what you're doing, too.
Really great. It's an honor to be on your show.
It's an honor to be here and with these beautiful people for this wonderful gathering. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Thanks.